Take another question here? Yes, in the middle.
I have an editing question for you. I really like the way you edited the visuals and mixing color and black and white and the green background screens that you interspersed and interspersing reality with movies and so on. I have a question though about how you used written words.
Mm-hmm.
Often they were newspaper clips or other documents, and rarely did you leave enough time to read anything substantial beside a headline or the words that you emphasize by bringing them forth. I just wondered why you did that. I'm always suspicious when I'm not given enough time to read something thoroughly, that there's something being left out or hidden or you're manipulating it. So I'm just curious about why you did it.
Well, you just passed the test for paying attention. No, I don't. I see what you're saying, and definitely there are times when in other, maybe not so much in this film, where every word should be read and should, you do something like panning or just make sure your audience. I mean, most of the time, as I said earlier about how we use newspaper clippings, they were sort of often as an illustration of what the press was. They weren't necessarily information giving, they were more for emphasis. And I apologize for not leaving enough time, but I think it's very hard to read and listen at the same time. So I definitely thought you should listen, and most of the time there were a couple of montages I could think of that, there was no talking and you were, and the emphasis were to guide your eyes, because the thing is, a lot of people, I couldn't depend on someone reading to get the information to move the story forward. I mean, oftentimes people don't even read the cards. And especially the newspapers, they were very much for illustration and emphasis, and that's sort of why.
And having been a filmmaker myself, you've got a toolkit of options, and some of them, when you need to deliver information, there's plenty of information that you do deliver in the form of text with the title cards, white on black, held up way long enough to actually absorb it. And then there are times when you're using a graphical element, essentially when somebody's not quite saying what you need them to say, and you kind of need to point it forward. And just an aesthetic choice.
Yeah, yeah, they were impressionistic.
Hi, I'm I guess a certified free speech junkie, being from the free speech movement in the days of Berkeley in 1964 as a student, and I felt all of this very, very much in my core values. I'm interested in knowing what the alternative is that would be suggested by other free speech advocates in a situation like Don Imus, and how that played out. Here's why. The young man that was so touching, Chase, right? He was one against an entire school day. The amount of harm that he would allegedly have caused was negligible in that context. Mm-hmm. The flip of that is that how does one counter a mega mogul like Don Imus for the people who are the victims of his speech? Mm-hmm. How do they get access to that kind of mega media? Right. Especially if nobody cares about them. So it's a kind of a flip kind of a question, and I'm trying to be a purist as much as I ever can be about anything, because I care a lot.
Well, the answer is always more speech. And you're right, in terms of when it comes to airwaves and media, there is, it's not a fair playing field out there. on the other hand, there was a pretty lively debate after the Don Imus affair, I guess. And I mean, it's you know, I myself, I had to watch hours and hours of Fox News of Bill O'Reilly, and I would very much wish that there wasn't a demand for that sort of thing. But you know, I think that's what living in a free society. It's, you cannot listen to it, you cannot support it, and hopefully there will be more speech countering it and telling people, well, these are not true things, and or they're not valid or whatever, and let the debate continue and not have one, because the danger is once you try to shut one person, you just never know who has the power to shut who up, and you have, yeah, it's an imperfect situation, but I think.
The answer once was Air America, but I don't know if that plays anymore. One last question.
Hi, I'm a retired teacher, and I'm a child who suffered the McCarthy period. And as a grown-up who works in dialogue in the Middle East, I was frankly horrified by Ward Churchill, as well as by the demonization of the whole situation that was mentioned over here. The student was, of course, upset about what that teacher said, because what that kind of remark leads into in a classroom situation is students not understanding the meaning of the Holocaust and not understanding about anti-Semitism. One of the wonderful things that the Anti-Defamation League does in its most balanced way is to teach about hate speech. So I think it's important for people who have this kind of a question to realize things are not black and white. Hate speech does lead into student riots sometimes at its worst, and people feeling othered, being othered. In a school situation, I think you really ought to think about the implications of it. The principal that started the school was a very different issue than Ward Churchill, than what you said over here. And I think it bears thinking about. And I speak from the heart as someone who works on dialogue. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that comment, Karen. Thank you so much for being here. If you like the film, make sure you turn your friends onto it. We have another screening on Saturday in Berkeley, and Karen will be there too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.